In the 1950s, the Rebbe founded Chabad in Yerushalayim. And the Rebbe then called one of the slonims. I tried to verify the story. I just heard the story last night, and I tried to verify the story with details. A little quick Google search didn't help me, so my apologies for lacking in the details of the story. And usually if you give over a story, you want to give it over correct, but I think the story is extremely vital for the message today. So I think it was one of the slonims that the Rebbe called on that he should inspire Hasidim, Lubavitcher families that were living across Yerushalayim, that they should move into Chabad in Yerushalayim. This Rabbi Slonim came back to the Rebbe a while later and said that he's been very unsuccessful. He's having a very hard time with getting the Chassidim to move to Chabad. The Rebbe said, why? So he said, because at that time, the Jordanian border was very, very close, right over there, next to Shikun, where it's now currently Shikun Chabad. And people are simply terrified. Because there were terrorists, that were trying to infiltrate from across. In addition to that, they had snipers that intentionally would try to pick on the most vulnerable, an elderly woman, children, and Rahman al-Islam. So it was very, very, very scary for people, and no one wanted to move there. So the Rebbe heard, and the Rebbe says to him, you get the Chassidim to come. Tell them they should come and move in. And the problem with the border, and the Rebbe went like this, that min rukin de grenets. So we're going to move the border. We're going to move the border. Fine. 1966, Chassidim Taka moved in. Yes, they had divine protection for a little while until 1966, the Six-Day War, and the Jordanian border isn't anywhere close to Shikun Chabad in Yerushalayim. What's unique about the story is not that the Rebbe gave a bracha, not that the Rebbe said that Eibishter wird helfen and so forth. The Rebbe just went like this. Vet min rukin the grenets. We're going to move the border. The Rebbe moved the border. What does that mean? The Rebbe's first svarim that the Rebbe gave us even before the Rebbe took on the Nesius, the first sefer, I think, I'm not good with all this historical facts, so I might make mistakes, and that's fine. But the first sefer, I think, is the Haggadah Shel Pesach, which makes all the sense that if the Rebbe's entire inyan is the Geulah, that he's going to give us a Haggadah Shel Pesach. Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the first publication he's giving us. The second thing, or not exactly which one was first, is the Hayom Yom. And the Hayom Yom, the little Hasidic teachings taken from the Friediger Rebbe's writings every day to be our inspiration for the day. In the introduction to Hayom Yom, the Rebbe brings the Rebbe Rashab's letter about the greatness of Chassidus, Rosh Hashanah LeChassidus, Yotes Kislev and the like. But even before that, the Rebbe gives us a short biography on all the Rabbeim. Literally, he gives us a biography of the Alter Rebbe, a whole history of the Chabad Rabbeim, but brief, a biography. And the reason is, there is Ma'or and there is Oyer. There is the luminary, and then there is the light. There is the Etzem, and there is the Yespashtus. There is the essence, and there is... So the first thing, before you start learning anything from a Rebbe, you start with an Eskashrus to the Rebbe himself. So there are the people who are the source of the Chassidus. And to them you bond. So we have first the lives of the Rabbeim. Fine. The Rebbe doesn't bring the biography of the Maggid, the biography of the Baal Shem Tov. even though generally when we give a list of the Nesiim, when we sing the Nigunim and the like, we start with the Baal Shem Tov. The Rebbe is giving us a biography of the Rabbeim of Habad. Okay? But before the Rebbe starts with the Alter Rebbe, the Rebbe brings the ancestry, very interesting, of the Alter Rebbe. And not just in general, but specific. He gives us 7 generations of the names. There's Rebbe Moshe, there's Rebbe Tzalel, and I don't remember all the names. He goes through the names of the father, Baruch, grandfather of the Alter Rebbe, great-grandfather, great-great-grandfather. He goes through 7 generations above the Alter Rebbe, and he comes to who? To the Maharal of Prague. And the Rebbe says, Migeza David ben Yishai. From the descendants of David ben Yishai. Very strange thing. I mean, okay, I understand you're giving us the biography of the Rebbe, but where does the Rebbe suddenly give us another 7 generations above, and he brings it to the Maharal, Migeza David? The Rebbe wants us to know in the first book that he's giving us, in his first Sefer, which this book is going to accompany every Chassid, all the days of his life, including after Moshiach comes, I'm sure. The Rebbe wants us to know that this is not just like a general Rabbistava, like there is a Rabbistava, many Rabbistava, dynasties, Hasidic dynasties. There's Belz, and there is Bobiv, and there is Satmar, all tremendous, very, very, very great Hasidic dynasties. The Rebbe wants you to know that this is the dynasty of Malchus Beis David. That we are, and there's a lashon of, I think, from the Friediger Rebbe, going back, I think, to the Tzemach Tzedek, Mir Zenin von Malchus Beis David. We are from the kings of David. This is the Davidic dynasty of David HaMelech. And it's interesting, 7 generations prior to the Alter Rebbe is the 8th. And then from the Alter Rebbe on, there are 7 generations, like we all know from the Basi Legani, and the Rebbe is the 7th. Comes out that the Rebbe is the 14th. What's Negeya so much that the Rebbe is the 14th? We know that the first time God's kingdom, the Eibishter's Malchus, was revealed to the world, it's compared, the Malchus is compared to the moon. It doesn't come in one shot. It grows. It begins very, very small. The world was empty. The world was ignorant. The world was dark. And then suddenly the light of holiness, the light of godliness starts shining with the emergence of Avram Avinu. And it got stronger and stronger from generation to generation. It reached the peak by Moshe Rabbeinu, the miracles of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but that wasn't really it yet. Because that was still a little bit, we say in Yiddish, in the Luften. It still was a little bit in the air because the Jewish people weren't living in the settled land. They weren't living in the world as a nation amongst nations. They were living in a miraculous existence in the heaven above. It took another 7 generations until we entered into, right away with Yeshua, we entered into a land. And Elokus started to take a form of dominance in the world, of a kingdom. And it reached its strength like the moon becomes a full moon. On the 14th day, Shleimus Alavana is in between the 14th and the 15th. That's when you have the full moon. Who was it? David HaMelech is the 14th. David is Gematria 14. Dalid, Vav, Dalid, Gematria 14. David is the 14th. Shloim Emeloshin Shleimus. Shlom is peace, perfection. 15th. Haimus Sihara, the Zohar says, Be'ashlemusa. The moon is its full brightness. 14th generation. By the way, very interesting. Parenthetically, related to what we're going to talk about a little bit later today. Just a few months ago, Yudalid Kislev, the day of the Rebbe's marriage anniversary, in which the Rebbe entered his 90th year of his marriage to Rebbetzin Chayamushka, in which the Rebbe is like getting connected to be the next Nasi of Chassidei Chabad. So it was the night of the 14th that there was a super moon. What's a super moon? A super moon is the moon looks the largest. Looks really big. So I looked it up in Google, super moon. How much larger does it look? 14% larger than it usually looks. Yudalid Kislev. President Trump that night was handed a paper in which he was going to sign, like all of his predecessors, in which they were going to sign an extension, a waiver for the American embassy not to have to move to Jerusalem, as Congress had already created the law back in the days of Bill Clinton. And every 6 months, it was pushed off. So on that very night, on the 14th of Kislev this year, full moon, the biggest moon the moon ever looks, 14% bigger, Malchus Beis David, Yerushalayim is Ir David. That's where Moshiach is going to rule from. That's where God's kingdom is going to shine to the entire world. It was on that night that he refused to put that signature. And it also says, when I read it I just got my facts from Google, so it's also 30% brighter, 14% larger, and 30% brighter. And just a currents, I like to work with numbers. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, we're learning now Pirkei Avos, Hamalchus niknes b'shloishim milos. Kingship is acquired with 30 degrees, qualities, but the words are milos. Now, when you say 30 degrees brighter, it's interesting. So it's 14 and 30. And on that night, he didn't sign the waiver. But he waited to announce it until the 19th of Kislev, Yutes Kislev, when it was here the 18th, but when Yerushalayim it was the 19th of Kislev, the day of the victory of Chassidus, which is the victory of Moshiach. It was on that day is when he made that announcement. But in anyways, going back, so just like in the first initial beginning of time, it took 14 generations of a build-up until we come to the full zenith, the full light of Kedusha in this world, the brightest it has ever been in all times until the days of Mashiach. Then the moon started to decline, many generations, until the kingdom of David HaMelech was completely, at least in a revealed way, dismantled. And it remained in hiding, it remained kind of underground throughout history. But then, Sheheim Masidim L'Schadish Kamoisa, we start reading, we say by Kiddush Levana, we are the Jewish people count to the moon because we are going to have a renaissance and we're going to come back. And we're going to come back a second time, this time infinitely more powerful and lasting forever and ever. And here too, it's 14 generations. So it's the Maharal of Prague. That's the new light that starts, and we know that's interesting, that Tanya is based on Mepi Svarim and Mepi Soifrim, and there's a Hasidic tradition. What's the Svarim that the Alter Rebbe bases his book on? A lot on the Svarim of the Shalah HaKadosh and on the Svarim of the Maharal of Prague. So the Maharal is a very key player. Therefore, I would like to quote to you today a little passage from the Maharal on Haggadah Shel Pesach. So the Maharal says like this. V'chol zeh, I'm just going to read for you inside. Ki HaMoshiach nikra Shiloh. Moshiach is called Shiloh. Hashem shahamalchus shaloi, because the kingdom is his. Shiloh comes from the word sheloi. The kingdom belongs to him. Umipnei shahamalchus shaloi, yimloi chal hakoil. Because the kingship belongs to him, which means he is the ultimate king. Kingship is his. He's not playing king. He's not just happens to be king. But kingship is him who he is intrinsically. Therefore, therefore, he will rule over everything. He will be the king over the entire world and on the all of existence. Now we understand, God is the king over all of existence. Hashem is the Melech. Hashem Melech, Hashem Molech, Hashem Yimloich. But the Eibishter manifests his kingship through a human king. Like it says by Shlomo HaMelech, Vayeshev Shloimoi al Kisei Hashem. That Shlomo HaMelech is sitting on the throne of Hashem. The Eibishter's Malchus is exercised, expressed, manifests through the Melech of Malchus Beis David, and the ultimate manifestation of that kingdom is Moshiach Tzidkenu. Therefore, Moshiach, who is nothing other than a physical expression in this world of God's kingship, of the Eibishter's Malchus. Now, if anybody's doubting what I'm saying, look in Derech Mitzvah Sefer from the Tzemach Tzedek. The Tzemach Tzedek in the mitzvah of Minui Melech explains that since most people can't relate to an abstract element of the divine majesty and king, so that's why we have a mitzvah to create a human king, so that God can invest his kingship into this human king, then therefore we have a tangible, godly kingdom in this world. And that's Moshiach. And therefore the Tzemach Tzedek says that the king, all kings, but primarily David HaMelech and Moshiach, their quality is that they are so buttle, they're so nullified, they're so egoless, they so don't have any mitzias. Therefore, God comes through them completely. It's not them, it's the Eibishter coming through them. So it's God's kingdom. Therefore, Yim Loy Chala Koil, the Maral says, Moshiach Tzidkenu will rule over everybody. And what does a king do? Since he has absolute dominance, the king doesn't want fighting. V'amelech mevatel kol hamachloikis. The king is going to nullify all wars, all disputes. Upirish shiloi. I mean, and because he's continuing to what he said earlier, the little piece I didn't mention to you. He says Moshiach's initiation into this world is all going to be about making peace. He is going to be the ultimate peacemaker. He's going to make peace in the world. Ein, he uses the word, K'shemashiach bo einoi peiseach elo b'sholom. He starts with peace. Just a quick something. When you're going to look at the Rebbe's Sichos in 1991, when the Rebbe said, Higi azman gulaschem, and the Rebbe spoke that Mashiach is already in the world doing his work, what did the Rebbe keep on pointing out to? The Rebbe was pointing to the elements of peace that are happening in the world. From the UN and things that are happening, that big empires are making peace and the like. Ein Moshiach ba elo b'shalom, only with peace. But then he adds, why is he called Shiloi? Ki shar hamalachim hoya moishlem al b'nei Adam b'koyach u'biyad chazaka. Shiloi also means Shai Loi, a present to him. What does it mean, a present to him? All other kings, their dominance, their dominion over their country, over their people, is with a tough hand, with a ruthlessness. As they're kings, they dominate a certain, by force. But not so. Melech Hamoshiach einoi kain. Mashiach is not so. His malchus would not be through a dictatorship. Everybody will bring in presents. Because he'll be the ultimate attraction. People will be drawn to him like this most powerful magnet. The entire humanity will love him. They will be drawn to him, so powerful. Out of love. The whole world will submit themselves under the malchus of Moshiach. Present to him. And then there will be peace in the world. Why? Because he's the boss. That's the thing. Everybody's under his domain, so he makes peace, because he's in control. Not an Indian of miracles, he's in the boss. Again, there's a border over here, and the snipers are shooting. So we'll move the border. So he goes and he moves the border. Melech Peiretz Keder, the king moves the border. That means that Moshiach Tzidkenu has dominion and power over the entire world. It's not his dominion, chas v'sholom, to say there's another power other than God. He is God's dominion. He doesn't do anything that's not facilitating the Eibishter's will, because he has no will. His will is the Eibishter's will. And therefore, he controls all of existence and all of the world. That's Moshiach Tzidkenu. That's the Maral of Prague. To appreciate a little better this idea. A melech. The melech
the Melech but not just that he's the boss, but that everybody submits themselves to him willfully and joyfully. Generally, the nature of people is that I don't want to have them. I don't want to submit to someone. I'm my own macher. I do my own thing. This idea of submitting themselves to someone, especially if that someone is demanding, and he wants of you many things. So the idea of submitting yourself willfully can be something that is one can think can object to that and be uncomfortable with that. Well, we take a look and we see, for instance, our relationship with the Rebbe. As we're talking soon, we're going to talk about the whole world. Let's first talk about Chassidim. Chassidim of the Rebbe. The Rebbe is a Melech. Chassidim are bottled to the Rebbe. The Rebbe is not here to make our lives easy and comfortable. We all know that. The Rebbe demands, and no matter what you accomplish, he demands more. Sometimes he squeezes our kishkis out of us. More and more and more and more. Yet, we don't feel that the Rebbe and doing something for the Rebbe is an encroachment on our life, on our existence. We're going out of our way to do something from the Rebbe, to the Rebbe, to a chassid Rebbe's life. When I'm doing my chitas, even though it might be a burden, it's not like I love doing chitas. Sometimes I'm learning about karbanis and about different parts of the animal. It doesn't inspire me whatsoever. About washing the kishkis over here and doing that. I'm learning Pashas Bereshis and so on. Sometimes we're learning things in Chumash that are technical about negoyim, about negatzaras, and we do it. We do it why? Because I'm bottled. The Rebbe wants us to do chitas, especially Rambam, right? Things that sometimes it can be very, very, very. And it's not always that we're inspired. But still, there is a thrill in the eskashrus. There is this thrill. Now, I mentioned the Rebbe doesn't always make things easy necessarily for us. I'll tell you a beautiful story. There was a Litvish Yid. He was a Maggid Shir in the Nitra Yeshiva. Nitra is in Mount Kisco. I forgot again. I heard the story like a few months ago, and again I forgot the name. My father told me he actually knew this person. He had a certain, in the Litvish Yid, he had a certain love and appreciation for Lubavitch. So he came to Yechidus one time. He was by Yechidus by the Rebbe. And in the discussion, they just spoke about Friday night. And they spoke about the intense, the powerful Zman. Friday night is an incredible time. In Sfarim it says of spiritual energy. It's a very, very elevated time. Aliyah Sa'olam is all the world's ascent. So he asked the Rebbe, how come Lubavitchers don't say Shir Hashirim? So the Rebbe said, I heard from my father-in-law, in the name of the Alter Rebbe, that when you say Shir Hashirim, it creates a big commotion in heaven. It's a market. It's a whole fear happens in heaven. But the Alter Rebbe says, I don't have to go on each of a Yeder mark. I don't have to be by every market. Just because there's a fear happening, there's a convention going on in heaven, I don't have to be there. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says, the Alter Rebbe said it in regards to Shir Hashirim and in regards to Vishamru, a little passage that we don't say in Habad. Fine. But the Rebbe said, the way I understood this to mean is, if there's a market, why not go there? When the Rebbe is lazy to go to the market, of course, why not? There's the Chazayim, the Rebbe said that there is another market, a much higher market. And that's where the Alter Rebbe went, to that other market. So he doesn't go to the Shir Hashirim market, he doesn't go to the Vishamru market. There's another market. I don't know where the Alter Rebbe goes. He went there. So the Rebbe said, that's what the Rebbe didn't say, I understood it. The Rebbe, the Friediger Rebbe told that to the Rebbe. So the Rebbe said, no, is this good? This is good. What? The Rebbe. But what's with the Chassidim? Chassidim, they don't go. They don't have access. They don't know the way to go to the other market. They don't know how to get to that great, great fear in heaven. Shir Hashirim, everybody can say. So let's at least go to this market. That's what the Rebbe said. I asked the Friediger Rebbe. So the Friediger Rebbe said, the Rebbe geht, nimmt mit sich alle seine Chassidim and alle seine Mekushim mit them. Now when the Rebbe goes to a certain market, he takes along everybody with him, including all his Chassidim and all those that are connected with him. So this Yid says to the Rebbe, I also want to come along to the market where you go. If so, should I stop saying Shir Hashirim? I have a minute to say it. Should I stop? And the Rebbe said, no, you should continue saying Shir Hashirim. So he said to the Rebbe, no, but I want to go with you. Where you go, I want to go. Take me along with you. The Rebbe didn't answer. So he said it a third time, Rebbe, ich will gehen mit dir. I want to go with you in your market. So the Rebbe said to him that when I take people with me, I put them to work. I know you want to have a relaxed Shabbos. But you want to enjoy your Shabbos, someone doesn't mean it, they come to Arbit. So therefore, so he says to the Rebbe, Afal Pikein, I'm ready for the work. So the Rebbe says to him, Ich darf haben nach Vorsteher auf jeder Mark euchet. I need a representative on the market, on the Shira Shira market as well. In other words, you go there. Where we need that market covered as well. So you go over there. Fine. A few years passed. It was 3 or 4 years later. This fellow forgot about the whole story. He came to a Farbrengen, or Shabbos Bereshis, I think. He's sitting by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe, and suddenly the Rebbe sees him. The Rebbe calls him over, and the Rebbe says to him, and the Rebbe says, "Es duchtzach mir, es duchtzach." These are the words. Es duchtzach. It is that Nächten sind die nicht gewähnt auf den Markt. Es duchtzach that yesterday you didn't go to the fair. So he was bewildered. He totally didn't have what the Rebbe was talking about. So he was like, and the Rebbe said it a second time. Es duchtzach. It appears to me that yesterday you weren't on the mark. And then it all came back to him. And he realized what happened was the day before he wasn't feeling well. He arrived to shul late. And he didn't have time to say a Shir Hashim. So it's the first time in many years he didn't say Shir Hashim. And the Rebbe said to him, it's duchtzach. So he realized two things. First of all, the Rebbe is not kidding when the Rebbe says something. Oh, day if you're in a market. The Rebbe is telling you, you're my representative there. And that the Rebbe can sense everybody's Shir Hashirim, what bracha you said, what bracha you didn't say, and so on and so forth. But in any ways, so the Rebbe, the Rebbe did not necessarily make our lives easy, but yet, the greatest thrill of a chassid is to be bottled to the Rebbe and give a nachas ruach to him. Especially if it's an individual shlichus. You know, I've spoken about chitas before. These are things that he asks from everybody all the time, not necessarily always feel it as such a privilege, as such an honor. But if the Rebbe calls someone individually and gave him a particular shlichus and the person is zeicher to do it, the joy that this one feels, this is life-giving. This can give a person 10 extra years of life, just the satisfaction that I was able to give this great nachas for the Rebbe. But this is chassidim who are connected to the Rebbe in a very, very pneumistic, deep inner way. We're Yidden, with a chelek l'kaim emal mamish, with a powerful holy neshama, a godly soul. But here we're saying that that the malchus of Moshiach is going to reach every single person. I mean, it's not going to stay only to the close cluster that are deeply clustered and connected to the Rebbe. It's going to spread out, outward, to the most outer crust of existence, to the most external layer of existence, the most removed from holiness. Klippus and Sitra Achra, that which is shells, that which is the other side, dense elements of darkness, that are antithetical to holiness and to godliness, that for thousands of years waged war against Kedusha. And these things, these entities, not only will they not fight holiness anymore, but they will surrender to holiness. Not only will they surrender to holiness, but they'll be transformed. And they're going to be makabel. They're going to accept upon themselves the malchus of Moshiach with joy and gladness, because they will realize and sense that that's their life. They receive life from being bottled to the Melech, because the whole reason of creation is for God to be a king over the world. And his kingship is realized through Melech HaMashiach's malchus. Now this idea that this is Moshiach is ultimately the idea that the Eibishter catches up with the entire world. God created a world, he wants to be a king. Adam, Rishon, and Chava were his subjects for a few minutes. Then they messed up. From then they plunged the world into darkness. And the world became disconnected from Hashem. A little group of people, Avram Avinu, and then created a nation that submitted to the Eibishter, Nasav and Ishma. And we created a small, tiny little hub that accepts and surrenders and wants to live a godly life. The rest of the world remained ignorant, separated, removed from holiness. What's our ultimate belief? What do we hope? The entire world, global, with the kingdom of the Eibishter, and everybody will accept the kingdom of the Eibishter, which is the kingdom of Moshiach. That's Moshiach Tzidkenu. That's what the Rebbe is talking about. For those who learned the Dvar Malchus, I know a lot of people here learn every week the Dvar Malchus. In the last 2 weeks, Parshas Emor and Parshas Achrei Kedoshim, the Rebbe is talking about the Aleph spreading. The Aleph is Alufay Shel Olam. The Aleph is, the Rebbe says, what's the difference between Geulah and Geulah? Geulah is not a new crazy world. It's not a new world that's going to happen. Moshiach Chicano is not going to come snap his fingers and suddenly everything is going to change. We're going to live in a whole different reality. Moshiach is our world. The same nations, the same governments, same people, you and your families, same physical body, everything we have with our possessions, everything we know today as our reality. The only difference is the Aleph, which is the divinity, the godliness, the Aleph, and Aleph means Alufay Shaloylam, that the Eibishter is the master over the world, is going to be revealed. Now when the Eibishter created the world, the Aleph is the Eibishter's power that's creating the world. God's power that's creating the world is the nucleus. It's the nucleus. At the really center, there's an Aleph. But there's a real big, dense world covering it. And where that Aleph, the Alufay Shaloylam, is not sensed, it's not recognized, it's not acknowledged. And therefore the creatures and beings living, of course, nations and the like, are living corrupt lives. Doing things that are horrible to each other, because they're not connecting to the purpose of who they are, what they are, and not connecting to the Eibishter, who is their power and who's their energy. What's the avod of the Jewish people for thousands of years? We need to burrow through this thick klipa with blasts of holiness, blasts of godliness. Every single Jew doing a mitzvah keeps on expanding that aleph. You blowing that poof, poof, little booms, little bursts of aleph. You infuse the world, generation through generation, continent after continent, city after city, village after village, person after person, across the entire world. The Jewish people are marching with that aleph, marching with the bittul to the Eibishter, mitzvah after mitzvah, across the world, Ashkenazim, Sfardim, Chassidim, Misnagdim, everybody. This one is learning Torah, this one is doing tzedakah, this one is doing... Everybody together, a massive army of holiness, in which we're purifying and purifying. The more mitzvahs we do, the more we're mezachich the world, and the more godly aleph, that singular aleph, permeates all of creation. But no one notices really what it's all about, because it's so confusing. We're living in a world that's so hostile, that's so ugly. So most Jews think that the ultimate purpose is we do our work down here. This world is just a challenge. This world is just an obstacle. And we go to another world, a heavenly world, after 120. And over there we experience ecstasy and bliss and a wonderful godly state. This world only gets darker and uglier and so forth until the Baal Shem Tov came. And the holy Baal Shem Tov is already close enough to Moshiach. He opens his eyes and he says, Geulah, do you see what I see? Do you see what I see? I'm seeing oneness. I'm seeing Hashem everywhere. And the Baal Shem Tov starts thinking, Hashem is here, Hashem is here, there, Hashem is truly everywhere. And he teaches that song. And he teaches Chassidim. That's the kernel of Chassidus, Achdus Hashem. But it's still something that's only registering deep in our souls. It's not yet reality. We don't understand it. We don't really get it. Comes another 2 generations later, and the Alter Rebbe, the great Neshama Chadasha, this great new soul, comes into the world, and he takes the Baal Shem Tov's Achdus Hashem, and he starts bringing it into the understanding that we should be able to appreciate and start literally seeing the results of all the work that we've done. He starts showing it. He starts explaining it to us. How everything in the world is created by the letters that Hashem is constantly sustaining. And he explains it rationally, intellectually, how a Chiddush needs the Koyach HaMachadish. I'm not going to go into the Chassidus of it in Shari Yichud V'Emunah and the like. And this is what the Alter Rebbe starts teaching it. And then you have 7 generations continuing until the Rebbe comes. Comes Doirashvi, Bosi Legani Achoisi Kalo. The Rebbe says when the Rebbe becomes Rebbe, The Rebbe says, now we've drawn the Eibishter down, heaven after heaven, lower and over, but the game is not over until you don't see it on the street, until it's not real on the concrete streets. It's okay for a chassid under a talis to be in a meditative state, and Einoid Malvadi, there's nothing but Hashem, but it needs to be on the sidewalk. It needs to be on every hill and every valley, in every town and every building. It needs to be in every airport. It needs to be across the world, that the Eibishter is Melech HaOlam. No one in the world ever took on that challenge, besides one man, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Why? Because he giyazman, the time has come. So the Rebbe begins. He starts with a cluster of chassidim, and he begins this work, spreading the light. Ufaratzta, that's Moshiach. Pirates. Moshiach is Ben Peretz. He's breaking all boundaries, places people would never think. How is it possible that town, that city, that place will have a yeshiva, will have a mikveh, will have a school? Now, there were great Geulah Yisrael who came to America and did a phenomenal work, or in other places, but no one took on the entire globe. Only one man. Literally the entire globe. And the shluchim spread everywhere with one Indian to get another Jew to do a mitzvah, to build another godly embassy in this world. And so godliness spreads and spreads and spreads. And if in the middle there are obstacles, if you encounter someone like Stalin who's causing major problems, so the Melech, the king, who needs to complete his job, bumps him. Literally. I didn't, but you can watch the video, I think, of the Purim Farbrengen, or definitely read about it, where the Rebbe says, hoorah, hoorah, a bunch of times, and he puts Stalin away. Literally. The Rebbe literally took Stalin down. He took him away. Said bye-bye. Out of here. Stalin doesn't think he's not alive anymore, because he's an obstacle against Kedusha. That is the Melech. Fine. This continues and continues and continues, till we come to Tafshin Nun. Nun Aleph. Nun and Nun Aleph. The Rebbe says a stunning revelation. A stunning revelation, the Rebbe says. Nigmeru avodas habirurim. The work of polishing the world is over. In other words, there's nothing anymore. There isn't any more opaque or matter. There isn't any matter in the world that is still blocking, that is dense, that will not allow the Eibishter inside of it. The Eibishter has now access to everything in the world. The Eibishter could have had access because what he wants us to do it. We did it. The Rebbe said, hey, Yidden, only a Rebbe can say that. Only the one whose job is to finish can know when it's finished. And he said, the Rebbe says, Nigmar avodas habirurim, we finished. Now the only thing that needs to happen is, now that there's no more blockages, there's no more dense places, there's nothing clogging anymore, now the Yizgalus of the Eibishter's Malchus can reveal itself in the world. And we can start seeing God's dominance in a very revealed, tangible way on the very outer layer of existence. That means in time and space, in the physical world. The physical world, which was once deemed by the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe doesn't give too of a beautiful description in the name of the Arizal about our physical world. The Alter Rebbe says about our physical world that it's the Rishayim, the wicked, prevail in this world. It's a world mole klipos v'sitra achra, full of vermin, full of klipos, full of darkness. But the Alter Rebbe had vision. The Alter Rebbe told us that very dark world that's filled with klipos and sitra achra, the purpose of it all is Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu liyasloi dira v'tachtoinim. The Eibishter wants to have a home in that dark world. The place that was once filled with darkness should be vacated. And even better than that, Yisron Or Minach Choshech will take all the darkness of the world and transform it. But the Rebbe says the time has arrived. And the Rebbe in Nun and Nun Aleph starts pointing. And then in Nun Beis starts pointing around the world. He says he has to help us open our eyes to start seeing the Hizgalus of Moshiach Tzidkenu, B'chol ha'olam kulai. The first thing the Rebbe points to is to the fall of the Soviet Union. Now, what was the greatest obstacle? You had an empire that literally did not allow, the last remaining empire that created Gezerah, a decree against observance of Torah and mitzvahs. Obviously, that's waging war against God. Not allowing Jewish children to be educated that there is an Eibishter, not allowing mitzvahs, closing down the mikvahs, closing down the shuls. And they were ruthless, and they were brutal, and they were impossible. This was one of the worst oppositions to holiness that ever existed. And they suddenly, overnight, they just, poof, The Soviet Union just, poof, disappeared. And without a bullet, without one person being killed. The whole thing is just unbelievable. How is it possible? It's just unfathomable. And who did it? Who did it? We, the collective Jewish people, did it. But who was the one who actually finalized it? Who brought it to the end? It's clear that's the Rebbe, because the Rebbe knew about it before it happened. The Rebbe then told Professor Branover all about it, and then when Branover met Gorbachev said, when did the Rebbe tell this to you? He said, the Rebbe told me. He says, I didn't even think of it yet. Do you understand what's going on over here? That means, because we know who did it. It wasn't any other Rosh Hashiva. It wasn't any other tzaddik. I don't care who it is. There was no one else. It was the Lubavitcher Rebbe who spoke about it. And then he's the only one who points, and he says, hey, Rebbe, listen. This is Moshiach. This is Moshiach in the world. And the Rebbe turns around further, and the Rebbe says, let me show you some more things that are happening. If you don't believe me, that we're living already in Yemoisa Moshiach, and Moshiach is already operating in the world, take a look. There's a threat that, God forbid, against the Jewish people living in Israel. A threat of chas v'shalom, people that someone who wants to threaten the lives of hundreds of thousands of Jews with chemical weapons. Saddam Hussein. And he has the means, and he has the abilities to do so. Now that cannot continue in a Mashiach world. You can't have a person with the threat, with missiles, and targeting an evil monster that wants to destroy the Jewish people. So the Rebbe says, take a look what happened. You see Mashiach's dominance in the world. Mashiach's dominance is so strong. Not only does that, it's not like the Rebbe goes and fights that battle head on. He takes the very, very forces of Geulah itself, the very, very armies of the world that until now were oppressing the Jewish people. He turns them around to form a coalition to destroy that nation and that army and that threat and those chemical weapons that are threatening the Jewish people. In that coalition is Egypt. In that coalition is Saudi Arabia. In that coalition is arch enemies of the Jewish people. And they themselves, and the Rebbe says, that's Yetzias Mitzrayim. By Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Bechorei Mitzrayim, they joined in a campaign to fight Egypt. What? You see, we hear this, not Hasidic Torah. This is reality. This is the first time in history this happened. Nations in the world got together, a powerful coalition. We might say Edom and Yishmael, the Christians and the Muslim world, together defeated. And he tried. He showed his true intentions. He tried whatever he can. He lobbed 39 missiles, I think it was, not Tomahawk missiles, Scuds. And everybody, by the way, everybody, all the Geulah Yisrael, everybody, because we have to realize, it's time that we realize that we don't, see, everything is blurry. The Yetzer Hara and the Klippa on the other side loves to tell lies. Pashut shkarim and lies and deception, they're experts. I was in Eretz Yisrael. Everybody went and got gas masks. Then I left because I became a chassan, then I came home. But everybody, and I was sitting in, I'll tell you an amazing thing. I was sitting in because I didn't go back afterwards. And I was sitting in the yeshiva over here in Borough Park. And I had a Rebbe, he was a Satmar Chassid. And when the Rebbe said Eretz Yisrael is the safest place, everybody thought it means that no missiles will fall. Then it was that's how you see that we don't get down to the depth of the Rebbe. We think we understand always what he's saying, but we don't really see it the full picture. We only see it hindsight. We see later. The Rebbe said the Eretz Yisrael is the safest place. And I remember the Scots started falling. And I remember, as Lubavitch Chassidim, we were a little confused for a few moments. Like, what's going on? And I remember that my teacher came over to me at that time, and he said to me, he said, you should know every Scud that falls in Eretz Yisrael falls on 770. He says, how does the Lubavitch Rebbe say nothing's going to happen and Scuds are falling? Well, looking back, Scuds fell, buildings collapsed. And usually when a building collapses, you have at least 20, 30, 40 chas v'shalom dead. And here, everybody walked out. Miraculous, unbelievable. Everybody walked out untouched. A little scratch here, something like that, but nothing. One Scud fell in an American base just to see what these... A Scud is like a school bus coming. Imagine a school bus flying at who knows what kind of speed. That size. Coming chas v'shalom right at a building. And then exploding with explosives. So now, one Scud fell on an American base, and I think there was a lot of Nebuch. Sadly, American soldiers were killed. Just to show you the capacity of one Scud. 39. Nothing happened. Only a Navi. Only someone who really has inside information. Only someone. And the Rebbe said, that's Moshiach. That evil itself, that which was till now evil, is joining along in Kedusha. Another Indian the Rebbe did not mamish mention openly as far as I know, but the Rebbe did speak about the concept earlier when it comes to radio and other technology, is that this technology helps unify the world and that we can teach the entire world Torah, we can teach the entire world godliness. In 1989 is when, his name is Tim Lee, I think, founded the World Wide Web. He launched the first web browser in 1990. That's exactly when the Rebbe said, Higi Azman Gulaschem. Because obviously, if Moshiach Tzidkenu is going to teach the entire world has to be connected with in a way that his teachings can go instantly across the entire world. It's amazing. The timing is unbelievable. So this is all going on way back then. The Rebbe's pointing thing after thing after thing after thing. Fine. Very good. Achakach, we had a shocker. We had what happened Chav Zayin Adar. Second time Chav Zayin Adar, the Rebbe's 2 strokes, culminating in Gimel Tammuz, and the terrible, terrible darkness and confusion and pain and agony, and that this all brought about. And this really, really, really threw us for a spin. And I do have to say that there were some stubborn Hasidim, and it took amazing stubbornness and total, emunah pshuta that has no, to be able to hold on with a firm grasp and not being spoiled from something that kind of looked like everything came crashing down and everything broke. Fine. Most Chassidim, Vani B'Soichem, and I, myself included, went into a very dark period in which our beliefs were questioned and so on and so forth. What's going on? Can it chas v'sholem be that this entire Habad project, and really go back to the Baal Shem Tov, because the Rebbe is really basing it on the Baal Shem Tov, which is 7 generations. Can it be that all this has come to an end? Yeah, but where's the Rebbe? It was very, 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 very difficult. And it still is difficult. It still is difficult. And many people struggle. And questions. It's not easy. It's excruciatingly difficult. And there were those stubborn ones who are and remain stubborn and strong. Okay. Let's take a look what was going on in the world during this period. Kind of it looked a little bit to those, when the Rebbe kept on saying, open up our eyes, and then the Rebbe wasn't there showing it to us every minute. It created a chalishus, and it almost felt like we hit a certain ditch, and we got like kind of stuck. We hit a quagmire. And Moshiach train kind of got stuck and it wasn't going anywhere. And it felt that way for many years. I can't say that I have figured out, looking back exactly to all the years from Nun Aleph and Nun Beis, where I can point to events exactly and say that Moshiach continued progressing in the world. I'm sure it did, and in many ways it did, but it was hard. And in terms of Lubavitch, even though we had our doubts and our questions, everybody thought Lubavitch is over, yet Lubavitch miraculously continued to grow and stronger and powerful, and Shlichus quadrupled. And unbelievable. It's like, and obviously everybody senses and everybody knows that on some level, no matter where people are holding in this kind of emunah, but everybody on some level knows and senses that the Rebbe didn't go away. What exactly does that mean? Is he here physically? Is he here not physically? Everybody has different ways of connecting to this. I'm not telling anybody how, what, where, and when. I'm not even going to kind of reveal to you where my struggles were in this, but okay, fine. Everybody sensed and realized that the Rebbe is still here with us and definitely directing things. Fine. Many years of darkness. Many years. It's almost like something got stuck. But then there were things. The Arab Spring happened. And there were these big major nations that were till now tremendous threats to the peace of Israel, to the peace of the Jewish people, threatening Israel. Now we have to understand every nation has a malach above, a power. And one after another, on their own, they started collapsing. From within their governments, they just were taken down, one after another. So that's tremendous world, an event, a big, massive event of forces of evil crumbling. Now, I'm not saying that because they crumbled, immediately everything became nice and dandy. In that empty, vacant space of these great nations that have fallen, there was an empty space where the vermin and klippas got in, and you had ISIS and Taliban and all kinds of, and Al-Qaeda, and so on and so forth. But you have to understand the distinction. It's not a nation anymore. It's not an empire. It's a clan of ugly cockroaches. And it's interesting, it also served as a certain, I don't know, these are, again, I speak a lot, not necessarily everything that I can give you a mucker and a source. Lots of things are just, I feel that the Rebbe empowered us to open our eyes and see things. So I can't tell you with absolute certainty what I'm saying, everything I'm saying is absolutely valid and true, but it's interesting ideas. Especially if you work with gematrias, you see a very interesting thing. Let's say, for instance, ISIS. ISIS was a brutal, ruthless power. You saw evil. Basically, the world got to see the face of evil and all of its ugliness. Thank God we're not exposed today's days anymore to those ugly videos that were coming out that literally, that caused us to almost vomit from seeing evil in its ferocious, disgusting face. But an interesting thing was, people joined from all across the world. It was almost like there was a suction of the darkest klippas that can't be rectified were all sucked into this ISIS. And then they were decimated. They're gone. Once in a while they still send out a little video, but they're nowhere close to what they were. And interesting, ISIS, someone put this out. Again, I don't want you to look at these things and say, oh, you're playing with gematrias. I just think it's interesting. Samach, if you spell it, even though their Hebrew name is the way they call themselves, their Arabic name is Daesh, but it's interesting that the way they're known in the rest of the world is ISIS, which Samach is 120, plus Yud, ISIS, is 130, plus Aleph is 131, which is Gematria Samael, Samach, which means this is Satan himself. This is basically, after we cleaned the entire world and all the klippas were like spit out, they had to go somewhere. So it's like when you sweep. You sweep and you get all the dirt out, and then you take all the dirt and you put it into one pile. Once you have it in one pile, it's easy. You pick it up and you dump it. But as long as they're scattered and they're embedded everywhere, so they have to form a collective group that's going to pull and schlep with them some people from Germany, some people from here. Obviously evil people, or else they wouldn't have been attracted to this. And from here, are out, fine. So you do see amazing things that happened even during that time. But to me it's clear that something massively unclogged about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, there was a major shift, and something broke in terms of a resistance to Moshiach in this world, and suddenly the power of Geulah has suddenly resurged in a powerful, powerful thrust, and it was powerful the last 2 years, but this year it's whoa on a whole new level. To the point, the momentum that the Rebbe had us in 1991 and 1992, it feels to me even stronger than what was going on then. So let's just try to clarify that a little bit. We had, in the United States, a previous administration that was not necessarily in sync with the ideals of holiness and godliness. If I should talk, it's a sensitive subject because sadly a lot of Jews don't see it, and Jews sometimes are blinded, but I think the crowd that's over here, and I think maybe most of the crowd that probably would be listening to this, I think you have to be blind not to have seen it. In almost every issue that is important to holiness and Kedusha and the like, they stood on the wrong side. From abortion, trying to legalize, and that's according to halacha, butchering and killing of innocent children, to this complete destruction of family values, complete destruction of marriage, total, horrible, and trying to impose it on people that you need to participate, that you need to make flowers, you need to rent your hall to people and you can't protect yourself by just going against your religion and your faith. And it was a war, and an outright war against religion. And then including in that, and I know we have to respect the environment, and it's our obligation. Torah has always been careful with the environment, but I think at the core of that movement of the environment issue was a certain belief that there is no God, and therefore it's totally up to us to protect the environment. And it reminds me a little bit of the generation of the flood who built big towers And they said, they built this tower. What was the point of the tower? Rashi says. They said every 1600 years the sky collapses. Because the Mabul happened. But instead of seeing the Mabul, the flood, as a divine as punishment, they thought they're the masters of the universe. So they're going to hold the sky up. There's nothing wrong, and quite on the contrary. We need to be sensitive to climate change and the like. It's important. But not in a way, God forbid, by taking God out of it, but by working with Hashem and feeling our responsibility. So if you take a look, but the most telling of it all was its mysterious fascination, not just the previous administration, but connected to it the media, to connect it with the colleges and the education system, and all the European countries formed a powerful, powerful movement to stop Jerusalem, Yerushalayim, and the building of the third Beis Hamikdash. Subconsciously, the whole BDS movement, the whole declaration that peace, and first of all, the powerful lie, the lie of a Palestinian people that existed, which on its own is a myth. Secondly, the idea that these Palestinians are being mistreated. They're living better in Israel when they don't make trouble, probably even when they do make trouble. But at least when they don't make trouble, I don't know when that is, they're definitely living better than they're living in all Arab countries. Yet, a lie that the IDF is baby killers and fabricate. And you understand, the Klippa doesn't start with the Palestinian terrorists. It's the backing that it gets from the entire world that gives it all its strength. It's the backing, it's the lies, it's all the reporting that twists every story to make Israel look bad. But more than that was that the only solution to world peace is going to be a splitting of a two-state solution in which Jerusalem has to be split. And what that really means, let's understand what that means. That means that we cannot have Moshiach because we cannot have a third temple on Harabais, because Harabais ends up in their quarter, not in our quarter. Now you understand, like, why does a college kid who loves partying, drinking beer, and who knows what else, why in the world, a college kid in Berkeley, why in the world does he care, mepnimius nafshoy, from the innermost of his soul, about the Palestinians that are being, and how about the Sudanese that are being butchered? How about the millions of people? No, that's not an issue. The Palestinians are an issue. We have to understand these are powerful subconscious forces, where the unholy was putting up its last fight to stop. Understand? We spoke earlier the powerful ending of the game, the powerful Malchus of Moshiach. And it reached the point that they gained so much power and so much success that they were on their final crusade on Yerushalayim. If chas v'shalom, the elections in the United States would have gone in the other way, and we would know who would be the president now, chas v'shalom, they were already at the point where you saw the last administration had permitted the UN resolution to go through right before he left. On the last day, he released a tremendous amount of money to the Palestinians, and one of his last deeds that he did was come into this catastrophic deal that threatens nuclear weapons, chas v'shalom, threatening the very existence of Yerushalayim. This is unbelievable. How can Jews not see this? This is evil in all of its ferociousness, but all masquerading, all pretending to be a face of humanity, of caring, of compassion, and anybody else who thinks differently is ugly, a bigot, a racist, and so on and so forth. That's its power. It's full of lies. They already had this 70, but when I read Siddur, sometimes the most simplest, most important things are in the Siddur. You open up the Siddur and you read, Yehi Chavoid Hashem Le'olam. It says clearly over there, Hashem Hefer Atzas Goyim. Hashem nullifies the council of nations. Heini machshavos amim, he disturbs the thoughts of nations. Rabbeis machshavos belev ish. There are many thoughts in scheming in the minds of people, whether it's Kerry, who, by the way, a name already says everything. The pasuk says, if you will go with me, in the curses, if you will go with me with Kerry, I will go with you, b'Hamas Kerry, with Hamas and Kerry. Strange, just his name. And Rashi says, Keri is Lashon Tumah. It's a word of Tumah, and so on and so forth. And he's orchestrating this entire deal. And behind this whole, they have the 70 nations. Imagine that. We saw it in our own 70 nations gathered in Paris, in which they're going to now decide the fate of Jerusalem. Had it not been already after Trump's election, had it not been, they would have eaten us alive. But what does the pasuk say? The pasuk says that the Eibishter destroys it. And regarding to what? You read psukim. It says it openly. It says regarding these psukim, we've been saying it for thousands of years. And regarding to what? What does it say? It says, Ki vochar Hashem b'Tzion. God chose Tzion. Iva l'moishav loy. Hashem chose that mountain. Ki Yaakov bochar lo kol Yisrael is Geulah. Hashem said, that's my mountain. This is mine. They want to mess with God's. You ever try to find something on a map online so you can zoom in. So you have a big map, you have full United States, and then you zoom in, I don't know, wherever you are. So let's say in California, you zoom in California, then from California you zoom in to, I don't know, wherever you are, San Francisco. In San Francisco you zoom in until you find, I don't know, what you're looking for Fisherman's Wharf. Okay, zoom in, find that one little dot, that's where you want to go, where the road's going. The Eibishter creates the entire existence, all the worlds. He zooms in, he's not interested in anything, he's on the entire physical universe, and he's looking for one planet Earth. And planet Earth, the Eibishter opens it up and he says, it finds that tiniest little country you can't even see on a map, which is Israel. In Israel, he finds a little city called Jerusalem, and in Jerusalem, Hashem puts his finger down on one little hill, and he says, this is mine. This is mine. Everything else, you can go live, you can make your golf courses, you can make your restaurants, your clubs, you can do everything, but this is mine. And they wanted to take that away from the Eibishter. What does the pasuk say? And obviously, without a Beis Hamikdash, there's no Malchus of Moshiach. Everything is disturbed. What happens? The pasuk says, the second pasuk in Tehillim, Yoshev Bashamayim Yitzchak, God starts laughing. Hashem laughs. That's the only time it says God laughs. The Zohar says that right before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a fight, a war against Yerushalayim. And the Ramak, Moshe Cordova, the chief Kabbalist before the Arizal, says that it doesn't mean a physical war, but they're going to come with an Atzas Sholem, with a peace pact. That's going to be their war. And God laughs. Let me tell you what that laughing is. That laughing is Donald Trump. That's the way God laughed. Because he gave them what they didn't expect. In a million years, they didn't expect this. Their tongues were salivating already. They finished. They thought they won the war already. And in the last minute comes someone and turned the entire world over, upside down. Now what's interesting is, what's amazing is, whoever doesn't see the hand in God, this was an impossible election. It was impossible. And remember, he was 15 points behind. First he started off with 17 contenders. And all of them had credentials. The only one who didn't have credentials is him. Every single one had credentials. And they were good people, a lot of them. You had the guy from Texas, Cruz, and you had a guy from Florida. People who loved Israel, loved the Jewish people. The only thing, the problem with all these people were that none of them had the couldn't care less guts kind of this, that could fight and bust the Klippa's lies. None of them. They would have all been intimidated by CNN or by all the, and right away back down. You needed someone who couldn't care less, to laugh, to poke fun, and to just dismiss them completely. Now it's not about, I'm not a right-wing talk radio. I don't care about this. I don't care about politics. I really don't, but I do care about the Jewish people. And when the Rebbe tells us, open your eyes to see Geulah, and we see a miracle like this happen, something that we wouldn't have believed with. And now we're holding by moments when the Iran deal looks like, and we're going to see it, Hashem should help, we're going to see it this week, completely ripped up. And when we see what all the presidents before, including all the pro-Israel presidents, what no one dare do, because they said it would make a World War III. The announcement of Yerushalayim being the eternal capital of the Jewish people. The movement of the American embassy to Yerushalayim. By the way, American embassy, the Guatemalan embassy, the Honduras embassy, the Romanian embassy wants to move. And there's Czechoslovakian. Why? Very simple. when Moshiach is going to come, Yerushalayim is going to be the hub of the entire world. Everybody's going to travel to Yerushalayim. V'naharu elav kol hagoyim, all the nations are going to come from across the world. How is it possible? And here's another thing, very important idea. If as long as the capital, as long as the nations put their embassies in Tel Aviv, what they're really saying is that the Jewish rights to Israel is the Balfour Declaration. It's a modern Israel. But if they say that their embassy is in Yerushalayim, it's a whole different story. It's because this is David HaMelech city. This is the Eibishter city. This is the Eibishter promised it. This is where Hara Moriah, the Rakedas Yitzchak happened. It's a whole different thing. But more, if you have thousands of people visiting a certain country, you need to have an embassy there. What happens if a person loses his passport? It's not going to run to Tel Aviv. No. The embassy needs to be Yerushalayim. And the nations are already sensing it. So they're putting their... I mean, the turnaround that happened in the last 2 years is unbelievable. All that big, monstrous klippa was busted. I call President Donald Trump a klippa buster. This is his... And it's an amazing... He paves the way for Moshiach Chicano. It's unbelievable. And it's especially, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but I'm not going to get into now, where the Rebbe spoke clearly in Chassidus, all about dafka, the taking that which is not necessarily the most refined, and that which is low, and that itself becomes Esav's transformation. Edom turns around. I mean, the Sichas, I mean, if you learn the Nun Aleph and Nun Beis Sichas, the Rebbe, we think we know what the Rebbe was talking about then. You see, the Rebbe is talking about everything that's happening now. And each year you learn the Sichas, you see new prophecies that you didn't see before. The world is catching up. The Rebbe said everything. Everything. Whoever doesn't believe me, learn the Sichas. And you see more and more and more, the whole world is turning around. What is that? What is it? What is it? What is it is, as I said earlier, the Rebbe says, so the Chassidim can't move into Shikun Chabad. We'll move the border. You see, the king is the boss. And if he doesn't like the previous administration, what happened? Let's think what happened. Remember what happened? Like, this is the craziest story. A week before the election, I remember I was in the grocery store on the corner of La Brea, and they're shopping for this. Right then, I took a look at my news. I'm always looking at the news because I'm always excited to see what's going on. And it was that big bomb that Comey decided that he's opening up the why in the world? He's kicking himself why he did it. He can't imagine. He said a few months, he's reopening the investigation on Clinton. And that's really what threw the whole thing over. And then, they're so stunned. It doesn't make any sense. Based on any explanation, doesn't explain how he's president. They're still baffled by it. They're still trying to figure it out. So they said there had to be somebody messed in. Somebody got involved over here. So they're trying to figure out who it is. This one, then they came to a conclusion, the Russians. The Russians were the one that interfered in the election. Meanwhile, they're doing Bedikas Chametz already. For the last 2 years, they've invested the biggest power of the government to look into every corner, nook and cranny. They haven't found it yet. But they're still going to find it. But we know the Russians colluded. The Russians are our Rebbe, Friediger Rebbe, the Rebbe. These are the Russians. The Rebbe turned it around. And if the world needed to see it clearly, the dominance of the Lubavitcher Rebbe over American politics, first of all, he's doing everything the Rebbe wants. Then he allowed Rabashkin out. I mean, that's crazy. And that too, by the way, in addition to this that we have Ahavas Yisrael, and we're so happy for a private individual, this has tremendous significance. Because him releasing a Jew that was put into prison, his incarceration was not a private incarceration. It was a war, a spiritual war against the Jewish people. I'll tell you why. As long as the Jewish people live in a certain country, again, perhaps, I can't say, again, especially when I start speaking Himmelish things a little bit, I'm just beginning, I feel this, and these are things that I'm learning based on what I'm learning, but I can't vouch for the full 100%, but Azoy Lake Tzich Bamir, meaning this is, the Rebbe said, open your eyes, that's what I try to do. So what happens, when we learn in Chassidus that wherever the Jewish people live, that country is the most powerful. Because the Shekhinah is in exile, and the Shekhinah is in that country. So that country becomes the most prominent country. They become the most powerful, become the most influential country, richest country and the like. For many years, it was the United States of America. But already from 2016, there's, I don't know, maybe even earlier, I'm not exactly sure. I wanted to check it up. I didn't get a chance to check it up before this class because I saw this week, my wife showed me the Mishpacha mag, I think, or the Ami magazine, one of them. It showed that in 2016 already, there's over 6 million Jews living in Israel, and America only has 5 million Yidden. So there's a shift. In other words, the Shekhinah is going back already to Eretz Yisrael. You see that? And that's why Israel is like unbelievable. The growth that has exploded, its economy, its wealth, its effect on the whole world. And today the main player on the whole world, you see, the main player on the world stage, which makes the entire world suddenly dazzled and look like a bunch of, I want to say, morons, is Netanyahu. Last week, when you see that everybody sees that they're the main players, that the Mossad is everywhere. You know, everybody's getting worried. Where else are they? What else are they doing? Unbelievable power. Why? It's all because the Shekhinah comes back to Eretz Yisrael, the power, and subconsciously the unholy gets worried. So what do? Like parasites. They take one Jew representing all the Jewish people. They make a libel against him, a horrible libel, and everybody saw from the story how horrible, how vicious it was. And they took him like vampires to suck his blood. And that basically they're trying. And who do they take? A Habad chassid. Why? Because a Habad chassid is the closest to the head. His roish belongs to the head. That's where most of the energy is. That's where the power is. And therefore they're holding on to him to like keep him in. And everything was trying. And that's the reason why. By the way, because this was a war against Israel, subconsciously it affected the Jewish people. It's the only issue that took all the segments of the Jewish people, at least in the observant world, and unified us. Nothing has ever done it to bring Lakewood, Williamsburg, and Crown Heights on the same page. It never happened. And this is the first time that everybody came together with such a deep caring and with such love. And they did so much. The Avos Yisrael was unbelievable. Because everybody knew and felt deep inside their kishkis, it's not about him, it's about every single Jew. And then, right after he announces the liberation of Yerushalayim, he liberates the Jew as well. Unbelievable. When? On Zos Chanukah. On the 8th day. We're on the year of 5778. I mean, the miracles are flowing, and they're flowing, and they're flowing, and Yutas Kislev, and Zos Chanukah. And then, by the way, the first time he attacked Syria. I forgot about Syria. It's very important, Syria. Because Syria was the only government that remained standing. Kamat, Libya fell. Egypt, the previous government fell. This one fell. That one fell. Iraq fell. Iran is still there. Syria almost fell, but Russia, which has a name, Russia, they decided the last minute to come help him and assist him. You wonder why? These are certain things that don't want. And he makes an alliance. Russia makes an alliance with Iran. There's some kind of a. Even though, on the one hand, you see that even in Russia, on Putin, you see the Rebbe has a grasp. Because he loves Habad. Amazing. Now, he's and from all there are a lot of there are other Jewish organizations working in Russia, but everybody knows that the ones who have access to Putin is Dafka the Chabad Shliach. And he's like a good friend of his. It's a very strange kind of situation. It's like trying to figure out exactly like where Putin is, because on the one hand, he has an alliance. But you see that the Malchus of Moshiach has full control over. And regarding to Trump, I forgot to say, in order for the whole world to see that it has to do with Lubavitch and the Rebbe, aside, you saw that the night before the election, his daughter, son-in-law, went to the oil and davened, and it was broadcasted. And a few months before, there was a horse racer. And he won the Triple Crown. He won the thing. Yeah, unbelievable. And then they go, and he goes there and he davens. You see, everything comes back to Lubavitch. Everything is coming back to the Rebbe. And you see the power, unbelievable. Well, where was I going before this? Remind me, my head went away a second. Oh, so Russia came and it runs to the assistance of Syria and kind of give him a boost. Now, the first military action that Trump did, let's understand something. Syria, Israeli soldiers knew one thing. They'd rather fall prisoners to Jordan, rather fall prisoners to Egypt, but the most vicious and brutal, most despicable, cruel people were the Syrians. It's the one place you just did not want to go. Horrible. Syria. Trump becomes president, his first military exercise was 59 Tomahawk missiles. And what do they have? They're the kind of the Yorish from Saddam Hussein. So now they're the ones preparing chemical weapons. Who are they preparing it for? Who? Their neighbors. Chas v'shalom. That's who they intend. So he comes and he gives them, last year, a Zetz. What excited me about it? It happened on Yud Aleph Nisan, on the Rebbe's birthday. That's when it happens. In other words, you see clearly this is the power of the dates are unbelievable. Yud Tes Kislev, Yud Aleph Nisan. This year he attacked them a second time. After he tried using his chemical weapons again, a next attack. This time, when did he do it? Koyach Nisan. Because Yud Aleph Nisan is the Rebbe. Koyach Nisan, the Rebbe says, my kinderlich, now you can do it. That's Koyach Nisan. The Rebbe says, I'm giving over the power to you. I did it. Last year I did it. Now you do it. Because me and you, we work together. Koyach Nisan. And you know what? The Rebbe keeps on talking in the Sikha. The Rebbe keeps on talking about the power of number 8. And this year is 5, 7, 7, 8. And the Rebbe talks about 8 and Shmini, and 8 is the Geulah, and Moshiach is Ches. Non-stop 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. So on Shabbos Parsha Shmini, and this year we read Shmini 8 times. Look in the news. He hit 8 targets. That's what they hit. Demolished 8 targets. In where? In 3 facilities. Because it's 3 weeks, Parsha Shmini. I mean, the Eibishter wants us to see these things. Because we should. No, why? Because I learn the Sikha, and then I look at the news. And when the newspaper and the Sikha look the same, you know Mashiach is here. Everything in the Sikha says in the newspaper. The newspaper says in the Sikha. Your mamish can't help but aligning the two. Then you see that this is all godly. It's unbelievable. And the Eibishter says to the Jewish people, don't worry, I got you covered. You learn Torah, you do mitzvahs, you do mitzvahs, you do what you need to do. Even the secular Israelis, they're also doing good things, unbelievable good things. They are creating innovations that are helping blind see, deaf hear, lame people who can't walk. Unbelievable medical breakthroughs, all coming from Israel for the entire world. This Mashiach things, healing and everything. Says your boys don't have to go out to war. So who does he bring? America, France, Britain, all 3. Unbelievable. Now, to top that off, the next big threat in the world that has been lurking as a horrible, horrible darkness and a tremendous threat to all of humanity, and that was a nuclear threat. And unlike Iran, who's pretending that they have no nuclear interest, he's telling everybody, quite on the contrary, flexing his muscles and saying, I'm going to lob some missiles over and I have my nuclear weapons. What happens? Suddenly this year, completely caught everybody by surprise, because everybody, and it's not, I know Trump wants to take credit to his great negotiating skills of teasing him, that you're fatter than me and so on and so forth. I mean, it's unbelievable. That's where you see that it's not him, because it's like, when I have a bigger button than yours and so on. I mean, it's just ridiculous, insane. It's not, it's not him. It's nothing to do with him. He's the puppet. He's the puppet of Moshiach Chicano. The fact that out of nowhere, they flip over. And now they're making peace. I mean, this is evil itself being transformed. The Rebbe says that's exactly Moshiach. Moshiach is the transformation of all negativity to positive. Now, we know that we have 2 types of Yetzer Haras. One Yetzer Hara is a very open Yetzer Hara, where evil comes openly and says, I'm evil. For example, when we experience a temptation to do something bad or something ugly, and we know it's wrong, we know it's bad, it's just, but then there is another thing. It's when evil tries to masquerade and camouflage itself and cover itself and pretend that it's innocent and good and the like. Now you can say that these 2 evils are represented by Kim Jong-un. He's openly flaunting his nuclear capabilities and threatening the world that I am willing to, God forbid, nuke the world. And Iran, who is another evil, who says, no, this is against our religion. This is against our basics. We never ever planned something like it's all for, our whole nuclear thing is all for peaceful purposes. This is all nothing to do with war, nothing to do with aggression. We are the nicest people. Really. If you're looking for a nice guy and you want to hang out for lunch, we're the guys. We're so nice. We're so kind. We love everybody. And here's the thing. In the last 2 weeks, and when does it all happen? I want to say something. When does it happen during Sfiras HaOmer? Why does it happen during Sfiras HaOmer? Because what did we learn? What do we say right after Sfiras HaOmer? What do we say? Right after Sfiras HaOmer, we say a special kapitel in Tehillim. Lam Natzeach ben Gidino is Mizmor Shir. Elokim Yochaneinu Vivarcheinu Yorpan. Ladas Ba'aretz Takeh. B'chol Goyim Yeshua Sechel. Yoducha Amim Elokim. The nations will know you, God. Yoducha Amim Kulam. The nations will serve you. We keep on talking about the nations and the nations. Why? Why so much of the nations? Because in Chassidus it explains, for those who learned Maimarim, we know that Sfiras HaOmer is a time in which we try to rectify our unholy side, our animal soul. We do a tikkun in our nefesh habahamis. And we also know the story that when there was a chassid, Rav Shmuel Munkes, who came to the Alter Rebbe, in the middle of the night, it was dark, and he knocked on the Alter Rebbe's door, and he said, "The Rebbe, let me in." He saw, how do you know, it's the first time he came to Lubavitch. And he saw that, not Lubavitch, it was Liozna. He saw that in the Alter Rebbe's house, the light was burning, there was a candle burning. And therefore he knew that what? That's the Rebbe, like the Rebbe said. The Rebbe told the story. The Rebbe said, "Wie the Rebbe is lichtig. Where the Rebbe is full of light." So he knows. He comes to the Alter Rebbe and he said, "The Rebbe let me." And he knocks on the door, and the Alter Rebbe said, "Who's there?" And he said, "Shmuel." And the Alter Rebbe told him, "Go find somewhere else. There's Eshel across the street. Go to Eshel. Don't have to come to 770. Go over there for the night. You come back tomorrow." And he said, "No, Rebbe, let me in." And the Alter Rebbe said, "No, go." So then the Alter Rebbe said, "You can get rid of him." The Alter Rebbe said, "If you don't leave, I'm calling security." If I have that story, I make events always. We had a big fire this time. We had a big fire in beautiful fire in Los Angeles, gorgeous. And then we had a few of the Persian communities, ladies, who came into the men's side. And they decided that they have to throw in candles into this fire. And you should have seen the feistiness of these ladies. They weren't going anywhere. No matter how many people said you can't, because they were going to ruin the whole fire. We were afraid that they were going to. It was a very contained fire, but it was a huge fire. And the Chas v'Shalom. It took, I'm telling you, the police had to come just to move. And they weren't going to move. They were all throwing their candles. They had such a munah that just by throwing a candle for Rav Shimon Bayach, it was beautiful to see. But anyways, Rav Shmuel, the Rebbe says to Rav Shmuel Munkes, he says, I'm going to call, the Rebbe said in these words, I'm going to call security. He said, I'm going to bring my guy. My guy will chase you away. So Rav Shmuel said, Rebbe, my guy is aggressive and dein guy. If we're going to compare guys, that's my problem. That's why I'm here in the middle of the night, because I'm suffering from my guy. I have a guy inside of me, which means we have a holy side and an unholy side. And the guy is the klippa. But what do? During Sfiras HaOmer, we're rectifying the guy inside of us. And we do a tikkun in the guy. I have to tell you this story. It's a funny story, but it really, I don't know how much time I have, but okay. Meanwhile, I'll tell you a story. Here's a beautiful story. It just illustrates this whole idea. I have a guy, besides my inner guy, another guy. I wish my inner guy was as refined as this guy that works for me. But I have this outer guy, getting confused already, who comes to my shul, and he does, he's a janitor or whatever. He fixes up and resets the shul. I have a different setup for Shabbos and a different setup for the weekday. So Matzah Shabbos, he comes on his own. He comes in and he takes all the tables, removes the tablecloths, and he sets it up for the weekday. Friday, he comes and he sets it up for Shabbos. Fine. When it's Yom Tov, I have to make sure to tell him that especially when Yom Tov comes out Matzah Shabbos, is that I tell him beforehand that he shouldn't come Matzah Shabbos and return it back. He'll shut all the lights. He'll do everything. And I have to tell him that he shouldn't do that. It happened once. It was Matzah Pesach. It was the first day Pesach was Shabbos, the same like this year. And Sunday we come to shul in the morning. After the Seder, we're all kind of tired. It's the second day Pesach. And we come after the second Seder, and we find this place, all the lights are shut. The tablecloths are removed. Everything is wichtash. We have to run outside and find a goy and put on the thing. But it was amazing. Because when I spoke that day in shul, I told the people like this. You understand, Pesach is a day that God comes and He liberates our neshama. Our neshama is the Jew inside of us. Our neshama goes on fire, wants to serve Hashem. We're all excited. But our Chassidus explains that our little guy inside of us doesn't respond to godly stimuli from above. You have to work on it on your own. So what happens the day after Pesach? If you don't really start educating your guy inside of you, to him, Pesach never happened. So he walks in, Matzah Pesach, the day after the first day of Revelation, takes the whole shul, puts it back into the weekdays, as if there was never Pesach. That's what happens if you don't inform your guy, if you don't talk to him. The whole point of Sfiras HaOmer is to communicate between your Jew inside of you and your guy inside of you. You bring the truth that your neshama knows into the guy, that our guy should also know our neshama. Every day you work on another facet of your 7 emotions. It really means reigning in the Gentiles. That's what we're really doing. Since we're doing it inside of us, it's happening in the world. So what happened in the world on Sfiras HaOmer? We're seeing a tikkun in the nations. And as I said before, two types of evil. The evil that is, at least it admits it's evil, that evil can be transformed. So Kim Jong-un is now going to make a peace deal with Trump, and he's going to become a very nice, good man. When Moshiach comes, we're going to have him walk around the Beis Hamikdash smiling and shaking hands. It's going to be beautiful. Iran, however, still has issues. Iran still needs therapy. They're still in denial. They're covering up their evil. So what happens in front of the whole world in such an unbelievable display? Stands Netanyahu, pulls down those black sheets. Whoever watched it, unbelievable, and says, "Look at this! Yeah, but look at the lie, sheker! It's all here in front of the whole world to say." And they're all, no, the world's still trying to hold on to their lies, but it's over. It's over. Exposed, totally exposed. And when is this all happening? Let's understand when that. As soon as we hit the year where the Rebbe's capital is Hallelu es Hashem Kol Goyim, Shabchuhu Kol Ha'umim. And it's so beautiful about this capital. I'm sorry, I have to say this, my own personal, Yetzer Hara. I enjoy having such a small little capital. Right? But I like the fact, and we're all dreading, like in 2 years from now, what we're going to have to deal with. We're going to do with Kuf Yotes, with the Rebbe, and start saying Kuf Yotes every day. Okay, fine. Ladies, Baruch Hashem, they love saying Tehillim. But the beautiful thing is that David HaMelech, in this capital, he gets straight to the point. Dominance of holiness over the entire world. Look in the little piece on top where it says that when Mashiach will come, all the nations will sing and everybody will be on par. As soon as we start this Halos Hashem Kol Goyim, we're seeing the entire transformation of the nations of the world. Everybody's recognizing Mashiach. Everybody. I mean, they don't know yet exactly. And then the most beautiful thing was last week, Donald Trump speaking. I have to say something so beautiful. First of all, you had Dafka the Lubavitcher Shliach leading the day. Watch it if you're on COL. It's beautiful to see. And I felt so proud at that moment of being a Shliach and being a Lubavitcher and being connected. Rabbi Levi Shem Tov is standing there with pride in the White House, leading from all faiths. He's the one who says the prayer. They dafka choose. Another thing, when Donald Trump became president, who was the first speaker who spoke after him? The first speaker, an Orthodox rabbi, Rabbi Heyer from Los Angeles. You see that, whoever can't see that this is so godly. And then, when they made a national day of prayer last week, it's Levi Shem Tov, the Habad Shliach to Washington, leads, and he spoke so clearly, so beautifully, speaking about Moshiach and speaking about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. It was beautiful. But then Trump speaks. And Trump says that he's initiating a new initiation of faith. And that God is the most effective, more than government. And then he adds another thing. He says, we're one great nation under God or something like that. And he says, and we say it. We say it. Others don't say it. We say it, he says. And then he adds, he says, it wasn't like this 2 years ago. Everything changed. See, he himself. Everything changed. Everything changed. Everything changed. So who is it? Who is behind this all? Hashem is behind this all, and this is all the Malchus of Moshiach. It's the Malchus of the Rebbe, and it's so clear, and it's so clear. And it's time for us to wake up to this reality and connect deeper and be Chassidim and know that this is what's happening. People have resistance. People have questions. I think I want to just conclude with one very important thing. And that is that one of the things I've been pointing out to you is that there are certain lies that are created, and everybody bows down to these lies until someone has the guts to say the truth. And once a person has the guts to say the truth, then suddenly everybody else starts saying, hey, you know what? Takaze. Mashiach cannot come from a bunch of wimps. We need strength, guts and courage to say the truth. So there are certain lies that are created in many spheres. Spoke about Trump being a lie buster. He says it, he tells it as it is. Tell you another one. Netanyahu has a lot of guts. Netanyahu, and the most important one was when he stood in the UN. Now we see the UN as a whole new UN. Like when Nikki Haley, she's like a godly sent, I don't know. It's in a sense even a bigger miracle than Trump. And she's the most popular politician. Amazing, the most popular politician. And she tells the UN, a new sheriff in town. Everything changed. Unbelievable. And she fights she's fighting like a brave lioness. Alone. And she's winning. She is winning. She turned around that UN. It's like unbelievable. But you know who really did it? I'm going to say it's Netanyahu. Why? Netanyahu had the guts to walk into the UN in the darkest moment of anti-Semitism, and of such darkness, and unabashedly quote the Rebbe in the UN and say this is a house of darkness and a house of lies. And as soon as Netanyahu was brave and strong to bring the message of Moshiach Tzidkenu loud and clear in the UN. By the way, all those who say, why the Lubavitcher Rebbe? I don't know. I didn't hear any other Rosh Hashiva's name mentioned in the UN. We're talking about global dominance. We're not talking about a Rebbe who has a shtipel, and I have full respect. But no one in the world took on the entire world. No one in the world can tell emperors what to do, can lead. Everybody knows that. No one in the world spoke like the Rebbe on every issue. Clarity. Everything is clear. No changing of the mind. Everything is open and strong. It's like, and no one in the last generation is a melech, is a king. You see malchus. You see absolute devotion of thousands of chassidim willing to do anything. I mean, it's unbelievable. You see everything. So going back, the fact that Netanyahu was unbashfully able to stand up and say the emes, he broke the klipa because Moshiach controls everything. But he wants us to have the guts to represent him and not be afraid. So there is one more lie that the world created. A horrible lie. And the lie is, and this is what Lubavitchers are suffering from, tremendous insecurity. The lie is, you say the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Moshiach, that's Christian. You believe in a second coming, you believe, and suddenly everybody's terrified. Oh no, I'm not from those Mishagoyim. I'm not, no. Don't count me. These guys are it's a fringe group in Lubavitch who believe something like this. We are sophisticated shluchim, we are sophisticated chassidim. We don't believe in something. Now the truth is most people don't say it, but at least they're not comfortable openly declaring, and me as well. Terrified. Deep inside, I've always believed it, but I was terrified. It says mentioned because ultimately people look at you like you're a Michiganer, you're a crazy person. I want you to know one thing. All those who make fun, you know what they'll make fun? There's no serious opposition because it's absolute amaratzis. The people didn't open up a sefer. They know nothing about Hilchos Moshiach. They didn't learn the Rambam. They didn't learn Hasidus about it. They don't know the spiritual dynamics of Mashiach, and they don't know the physical halacha of Mashiach. Plain, simple ignorance. Don't know anything. Who are the ones? So no one wrote a serious thesis to be able to, negate a belief and to say that it's apikorsis or whatever it is, chas v'shalom, that they want to say. Who is it? People that sit and shoot from I don't want to know where. And they write, and they're in blogs, they're busy writing, it's stupid. Without any basis, without any truth, without any substance. That's what they say. And we, Lubavitchers, are afraid. This one will say, maybe the Rebbe gave you enough ammunition. Maybe the Rebbe gave you enough chassidus. Maybe the Rebbe told you how to learn the Rambam. And the Rebbe sat hours and hours explaining Moshiach and Moshiach Tzidkenu. Who? You take a look at the Rambam. Yamoy the Melech, a king will get up. A king will rise. Look in Jewish history till now, find me who's the king that has risen. You might say other tzaddikim were a king. I'll share with you an interesting thing. What time is it? Okay. So there was when I came back, when I came to Lubavitch first in 1989, Tavshem Mem Tes, I came to Crown. I was there. It was a journey for me. And I remember I met another bacher. I was in Slobodka and he was in Panovich. And together, we were saying, man, verchapt geworden by the Lubavitchers. You know, they reeled us in. We went for Shabbos, just for fun. You never know with these Lubavitchers. They're very dangerous. Keep your children away from these Lubavitchers. In any case, so they wheeled, so me and him. So I remember sitting and talking. He was in New York, and he was by the Rebbe Simchas Torah. I was a fool, and I didn't go. So I wasn't there. And I never got to see Simchas Torah like in the, I saw the Rebbe Nun Gimel, Simchas Torah. I can't say I didn't get to see. I saw, but before Chav Zayin, that I didn't see. And so he was telling me, this guy was busy talking to me about his experience in Lubavitch. And he told me like this, you know, if you're trying to be Mitzayer in your head, what a Tana looked like. What a Tana. So he's in Bnei Brak. He said to me, the Chazon Ish, if you look at his face, he looks like a Tana. He looks like someone, a scholar of the highest proportion. Fine. The Chazon Ish was Taka Goyen out there. But he says to me, he says, a king, if you're trying to imagine what a king looked like, what a melech, that isn't 770. And I remember that. That's what you felt when you watched the Rebbe. You see a melech. Just the idea that a king and the people are synchronized. He is their heart. He pumps the blood in them. You didn't see? I mean, I was by many Rebbes. I went to Tishon. I went to this union, this attachment. It's something that you can't explain in words. And everybody from Ul Hasidim know that Lubavitchers are wackies, they say. Why? Because they're crazy about their Rebbe. They'll do things no one else will do. No one else has such a bittul to a Rebbe. He's a melech. Thousands and thousands of Chassidim. And he's a king. And he runs his show as a king. Because he gives orders and people listen. So that's Yamid Melech. What's the next thing? Hoy Gibet Torah. Someone who studies Torah. The Rebbe studies Torah day and night, all his life. The Rebbe's essence is Torah. Everything about the Rebbe is Torah. And talking about genius, innovation. Which aspect of Torah is the Rebbe not Boki, Nifla, Nig, from Paradise, Pshat, Remez, Drush, Soid, Kabbalah, any subject. And any subject is mind-baffling. I will challenge every person listening to this thing that might not be a Lubavitcher, or will look at me and say, "Oh, he's saying crazy things, Lubavitcher, Rebbe Mashiach." I challenge you, whoever it is that's listening, I challenge you to call me up after this speech. You'll be able to contact me. I'm not hiding. Call me up and say to me, "Rabbi, I want to learn with you 5 sichos." I let you choose the sichos randomly. Go to Kut Sichos, choose, pick out any sicha. We'll learn b'chavrusa. I guarantee you, I can put down money on that. After 5 sichos, you'll be a Lubavitcher Rebbe and admirer. After 10 sichos, you'll be pretty much a chassid. After 15 sichos, forget about it. You'll be a burnt chassid. It's simply people didn't learn the Rebbe sichos. They didn't learn it. They don't know. And anybody who learns, anybody who examines, take a look, go to the oil. It's packed today. Everybody knows already who the Rebbe is. You want a miracle. You want hundreds, chassidim, this, that, and stories. I mean, before Gimel Tammuz, after Gimel Tammuz. No end. The miracles. I don't know if the Baal Shem Tov had so many miracles like the Rebbe. It's like non-stop. And it's the only place where you can go into where people are fascinated and don't have an end of excitement of talking about the Rebbe. And it annoys. I'm sorry to share this with so many people who might be on the outside still. And you say, you get very annoyed. Lubavitchers are, yeah, because if you start reading about him and learning and getting close to him, you realize you're dealing with someone who's like just unbelievable. It's just not, you can't put your minds around his greatness in every aspect. Supernatural, clarity, teaching, Torah, okay. Hoige Torah, studies Torah day and night. Oisek b'mitzvahs, is engaged in mitzvahs. Who else do we know engaged in Oisek? Mitzvahs are his business. That's what it means, Oisek. It's his business. Has there anybody produced a bigger mitzvah factory than the Lubavitcher Rebbe in all of history? Ridiculous. Then, V'Yakov Kol Yisrael. He will cause all the Jewish people to go in the ways of mitzvahs. Okay. Does that mean every single Jew already fully complied? But the Rebbe set up a network. It's hard to find a Jew who didn't put tefillin and didn't light Shabbos candles. The Rebbe take every Jew to have a connection to Yiddishkeit. No matter where the Jew is, somewhere he'll bump in. In the history of the world, no one set up a network to reach every single Jew, the Yaakov Kol Yisrael, l'chazik bitkot, to strengthen Judaism, and also the way Lubavitch does it. Today's days you have others who are also involved in Kiruv and doing things, but the Rambam says Yaakov. Yaakov means he will compel people to do mitzvahs. So when, instance, other organizations doing great work, Baruch Hashem, the way it is done is you convince someone by teaching them. Until they understand and appreciate the value of Judaism, that it's true and it's real, then they'll commit to a mitzvah. A Lubavitcher doesn't wait for that. He meets a Jew on the street on a cold meeting. On the street corner, on the plane, on this. You're Jewish, you're going to do a mitzvah. No, you are going to do a mitzvah. And guess what? 95% concede and do the mitzvah. Why? Yaakov, he compels. Because he's Melech, because he's king. A Jew can't say no to the Rebbe, because the king is telling him. You think the Lubavitcher Rebbe was a big genius? You think any other person could have done this? No one could do it. They don't have the power to do it. Lubavitchers have the power to do things that no one else can do, because they're coming with the power of the Melech. And if he's the king over if he's a king over Kim Jong-un, he's definitely king over the Jewish people. Definitely, he's king over everybody. Yaakov Kol Yisrael. Unbelievable. What else? Who is the voice who fought the wars of God? Who's the clear voice fighting for Shleimus Haaretz, fighting for Shleimus of the Jewish people? Unwavering, unbending, strong fighting. And he wins. When God, it looked like he wasn't winning in Eretz Yisrael. Now we see he's winning. Everything turned around the way the Rebbe wants it. Problem people have, and I think we have to be honest and real and be able to engage a problem. The problem people have is the Rambam says, if he doesn't make it, so he's talking about Cheskas Moshiach, but if he doesn't make it, then he's a tzaddik and a great man. Doesn't take away his vow. But it didn't happen. So today's days, almost every person will say the Lubavitcher Rebbe could have been Moshiach. He was the closest candidate ever to be Moshiach, but he didn't make it. Araya, Gimel Tammuz happened. And people will say, I'm going to use a word that I generally wouldn't use. People will say he died, chas v'shalom. And therefore what? He can't be Moshiach. So first of all, it's Baba Mises. That itself is a lie. The Rambam says, if he gets killed, Yehareg, he gets killed. The Rambam doesn't, now, it always bothered me. Why do you have to say get killed? See, if you say he died, it includes getting killed. Say he died. If one person, let's say died. So then if one person, chas v'shalom, dies, he can't be Moshiach anymore. Rambam should say umeis. It's a shorter word. It's less writing. And that will include being killed. Rambam doesn't say so. It's clear from Rambam, only if he's killed means he was defeated. That's the idea. If he gets killed in his battles means he was defeated. So we can't believe that he'll come back again and finish his war. But if it doesn't, I'm saying even if chas v'shalom we don't look at the Yaakov Avinu loy meis and even of all that, I'm just saying that there are certain lies that are put out there, and every Lubavitcher gets terrified just because someone says, an Amoritz who didn't learn the Rambam, and he's making a tzaris over here. He's saying, did you learn? Did you know? Why does the Rambam say the Yehareg? This is an addition that the Lubavitcher Rebbe had prepared us already, and he brought us Ma'amorei Chazal, and he taught us about the idea of Yaakov Avinu loy meis, and even if things look like he died, it didn't. And the Rebbe, I think it's very interesting. I'm talking to Shluchim as well, to everybody that will listen to this. Yaakov Avinu loy. In all of history, this is a Gemara. The Gemara says Yaakov Avinu loy meis. It's funny. No one knew about this Gemara until the Rebbe's time. I mean, of course, if whoever knows Shas learned to that. No one is busy with it. The Rebbe spent sichas upon sichas upon sichas explaining this idea on so many different levels of what does it mean Yaakov Avinu loy meis. And so the Rebbe told us already beforehand. No, there'll come a time, there'll be questions, there'll be this. So first of all, we say David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam. So the whole Inyan of Nisa, and the biggest proof to that, as I said earlier, Lubavitch didn't collapse. It's an organization that must have a leader. And yet it's thriving. Not only didn't it collapse, it's thriving unbelievably. How is that possible? Is the Chasimin that loy meis? But even if chas v'shalom you would say even that, it's a lie. So why do people have to be, some of us then, we're uncomfortable because of this. So we have to bust that klipa too and say, you know what, I'm not embarrassed anymore. Shem zich nicht. It's costing me my blood, I tell you right now. But you should know something. I'll tell you an amazing thing. I was so scared when I gave my speech in 770 this year and evoked back. I was then very, very careful with my words, how I'm speaking. Then I went to Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe nudged me. If I tell you the stories, I don't have time now. If I told you the stories how I've gotten answers and the Rebbe led me step by step, it's like crazy. Shluchim are afraid it might hurt them financially. It might, they'll lose their followings. It's an unbased fear. It's unbased. It's not true. I never had such a year of miracles like I had since I spoke up and I'm talking openly. Unbelievable. I hate fundraising. I never pick up the phone to call anybody. And I always go through tension and so. This year, every time I needed money, someone came and brought me money. A lot of money. I mean, I needed it. I don't know. It just happened last week again. Since I had a little bit of a courage to stand up and say, you know what? I don't trust in man. I don't trust in anybody. And if someone is going to get upset and not going to support, okay, you know what? The Eibishter has a million other ways. Shem Zachnish, don't be afraid. Speak the truth. And guess what? The miracles are flowing. People want to hear the truth. If you're a Lubavitcher and you don't tell the truth, they think you're hiding. It's like a Jew who doesn't want to say the truth about being Jewish. So then the non-Jew gets very suspicious if you don't want to. They all know the emes that deep inside we know what we believe. But when we're trying to pretend and to hide and I don't know these, stop already. It's time for us to be proud and to be strong and know the emes and know the truth. And all this, people want to hear the emes. They want to hear the truth. They might need education. I wouldn't say the first thing you meet someone, have to throw it in their face. You have to learn. You learn Tanya first. You learn the purpose of creation. You learn with him a few sichas. You learn with him the whole idea. I mean, these are things. Once you understand it, then he himself is already. I have a guy in my shul that was. I'm nonstop talking about Moshiach, and he heard that I gave that speech in 770, and he says he was very, very upset about it. And now he keeps on coming over to me every week, and he says to me, you know, it's Mashiach Zeit, and it's Mashiach Zeit. I don't care. If it's Shneis, then let it be Shneis, and whatever it is. So at least they all have Sveikas. Not for sure. I have a Litvisher crowd. Some people that are not necessarily, yeah. But if you teach it, and you're not embarrassed, and you speak, and people see that we Lubavitchers have Teichen. We have depth. We have meaning. We can explain things. Why? Because we have Pnimiyus HaTorah. If we realize the wealth that we have, and people say, "Oi, you're going to be Merachik people from Chassidus." You're going to be Merachik. I want to ask you a question. When the Alter Rebbe came along and the Alter Rebbe dropped the bomb in Perek Lamed Vav and Tanya, that the whole purpose of creation is Hashem wants to have a dwelling place down here in this world. I'm sure some people told the Alter Rebbe, "You're going to be Merachik people from Chassidus. You're turning all of Yiddishkeit upside down." The answer is ridiculous. That's Chassidus. Then when the Rebbe Rashab came along, and the Rebbe Rashab said that Yutas Kislev is the Rosh Hashanah, and this is the whole purpose of creation. So the people say to the Rebbe Rashab, "You're embarrassing us. You have to say such extreme things." And the answer is, that's Chassidus. And when the Rebbe comes along and the Rebbe says, Baal Shem Tov, 7 generations, and this is the 7th one that's going to bring the Geulah, people say, Rebbe, come on. You're bringing this messianic stuff over here. You're going to cause everybody to run away from Lubavitch. And the answer is, that's Chassidus. And then when the Rebbe comes to Nun and Nun Aleph, and the Rebbe teaches us new things, then that's Chassidus. What do you mean Merachik from Chassidus? Not mean Merachik anybody. It's our own imagination that it's Merachik. It's not Merachik. People want the emes. People want the truth. We shouldn't be embarrassed. We should say the truth. And not feel ashamed, not feel proud and strong, because this is the emes. And like this, as the Rebbe speaks about the Moshiach inside of us. Mashiach, and I say to those who disagree, I'm not Chas v'Shalom telling you have to believe this way, but don't say Chas v'Shalom, it's against Torah to believe this and create this false myth. It's not true. It's just simply not true. There's no basis to it. To me, Moshiach is very real. I see it happening in the world right now. I look around, I don't see anybody else who was Yaakov Kol Yisrael and has the infrastructure to build, to redeem the entire world. The only one I have is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. So therefore, this is what I believe. You want to believe another Mashiach? I don't know. You have Gesundheit. But one thing is for sure, Mashiach is definitely coming. Mashiach is coming. He's coming now. And it's happening. And with the Ezra Hashem moments, with any Mamish, right now, will open up our eyes and we will see Melech Hamoshiach with the biggest smile and with the biggest simcha, with the biggest joy, and we will march together to the third Beis Hamikdash, to Yerushalayim, and celebrate forever and ever.